I am live. I am reading Vague Vacation. It is a book by Joan Marshall Grant. She travels through France here. This was published in 1947. She was largely known because she was a writer of her own farm memories. She wrote 7 books on her own farm memories in ancient Egypt, in Italy. Life of Carola is one of my favorites. It plays in 1504, or that's when it starts anyway. Back to this book. We are at chapter 9, I think. Are we at chapter 9? Sorry, these are Roman numbers. I'm never that comfortable with Roman numbers. No, fromage for whiskey and water, penicillin. Au CHAPON FIN. It's 9, the 9th chapter. The only valid argument against a double bed is that if one occupant is restless, the other, unless he or she be a heavy sleeper, has little chance of tranquility. I'm a heavy sleeper, but Charles is not, and so I appreciate that it cannot always be desirable to prefer the extra warmth of the 2-in-1 to the extra space of 1 in each. But in this first evening, we were tired enough to sleep almost anywhere, and had no intention of waking early. The last thing I remembered was the metallic tapping of the leaves of the plane tree in the courtyard. Before dawn, the church began to ring her bells. We awoke, listened, turned over, and went to sleep again. A few minutes later, a dog fight started. We awoke, listened, and went to sleep again. Somewhere in the same street, a tractor started up. With cacophonic virtuosity worthy of a desert, it cramped the whole length of the street at snail speed. We went to sleep again. Abruptly, we were both sitting up. An air raid siren clamoured the all clear. We abandoned sleep and rang the bell for breakfast. Nothing happened for 10 minutes, so Charles put on his dressing gown and went in search. He soon returned to say that we need not often expect to have the bell answered, for it was situated in a place where no one was likely to hear it. However, he added, I found the maid, and I think she has grasped the idea of breakfast, though either my French is worse than ever, which is quite likely, or else she is a Belgian or something. We later discovered that she was Alsatian, but it would have been just the same with the Parisienne, for on first waking both of us found French twice as difficult. Presumably one dreams resolutely in English. The siren screamed again as she brought in the coffee, which as usual shared nothing except name with the original. There's not by any chance another war, I asked, and she conveyed the welcome news that the noise was to wake the workers at the local enterprise, the second assault being to prevent them going to sleep again. So many heralds of activity suggested that the village was the scene of frenzied effort during the day and had been so quiet when we arrived because by sunset the inhabitants were exhausted. But we wandered aimlessly through the placid streets and saw no one who seemed to be in a hurry. No one who was too busy to talk. We sent a telegram from the somnolent post office and had a long conversation with the owner of a little shop where we bought a bottle of ink. The ink, according to the habit of its kind, began to leak before we had gone more than a few hundred yards. I hid it in a sack of drain pipes, intending to fetch it on our way back. Several times we made a determined effort to collect it, but I expect it is still there. We paused to look at a derelict dredger lying drunkenly in the green scum of backwater of the Saône. What a wonderful breeding place for mosquitoes, I said. It is surprising that we have not been considerably eaten already. You may have expert knowledge, but I have practical observation, said Charles. There were none in our room last night, nor did I observe slaughtered corpses on the walls. I cannot imagine why we saw none while we were in Troissy, and why the place was also free from flies, but it was so. Further along the avenue a car passed us, going fast, and a few minutes later another. They look like locals, said Charles. Odd that they haven't discovered the bridge is down. We found the cars at the end of a queue of 5 others waiting for the ferry. One of the drivers explained that although the crossing was infrequent, it was better to wait for an hour or more than to waste petrol on a detour. The ramp of the bridge was cluttered with contractors' gear, but though it was complete except for the final span, no one was working among the vast steel netting which reinforced the concrete. We crossed on a plank footway and then returned to lean on the parapet and watched the current driving through the arches. The ferry slowly passed us, the passengers hauling on the rope which brought it across by their combined efforts. A barge, with a line of drying clothes bright against the tarpaulin-covered hold, came through the arch below us and then turned in a wide sweep to tie up at a small quay. It might be pleasant to live on a barge, I said reflectively. No posts, no telephones, nothing to do except to lie in the sun and watch the scenery change without jerks. You would be fully occupied with cooking and laundry, said Charles practically, or else too busy shouting instructions at me to be aware of anything except the imminence of the next obstacle. There would be no need to cook. We should stop at inns when we were hungry. Perhaps I should angle a little with a line dangling over the side and requiring the minimum of attention. And eat raw fish, presuming your efforts were successful. I pointed to an auberge on the quay, which displayed a large notice to the effect that fish brought there by anglers would be fried for them. I shall purchase suitable tackle and either contemplate the float from the bank or hire a boat. No longer do I need to cast a respectable fly, to wade in icy streams furtively, to disentangle my line from bushes which have grown in a flash from a bank which a moment earlier was unencumbered. I will provide the rod, even row the boat, if that is vital to your enjoyment, but I refuse to gorge myself on pike or whatever else you may happen to catch. In this river, trout would be improbable, salmon more than unlikely. The rest would be no more than variations on the theme of blotting paper and pins, with a dash of mud to give body. I agree. We will give our catch to less fortunate fishermen, though already I doubt if we shall require activity here. The water meadows have a tranquillity we shall begin to share. We can float on them, for they are obviously made of a substance more fluid than grass, and it is surprising they do not reflect the sky. There must be floods here in winter, said Charles, and cowslips in spring, red umbrellas and ices, and people on the plage in summer, on the beach in summer, and undoubtedly music blaring from loudspeakers and organized fun. However, in this season, it is not necessary to consider what it would be like if we were here at some other time. It is enough that we find the place entirely to our liking. Or do we? We do. There will be for lunch, so I am informed, that CHAPON FIN, after which our hotel is named. So we had better go back. So the next chapter is entitled Bureau, and I read it another time. Have a lovely Sunday.